New York State making it easier for incarcerated individuals to make phone calls. We will hear from a prison advocate on the impact this will have. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. Phone calls from inside New York State prisons are now completely free. This
is a shift that supporters say is going to ease the burden on families of incarcerated people. New York State Department of Corrections will cover the full cost of the calls of any phone calls made by the incarcerated individuals. Now, previously, families had to cover those fees. Advocates say that this new policy not only helps families stay connected, but can also reduce violence and improve rehabilitation efforts.
The Department of Corrections Commissioner issued a statement that reads, quote, understanding the value of family ties while in prison is crucial, not only for emotional support, but for improving an individual's outcome while incarcerated and when returning to society, thus reducing recidivism.
New York State joining 5 other states that offer these free prison calls, including California and nearby Connecticut.
Joining us now to give additional insight on the DOC's policy is Bianca Tylik. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me.
So for people that don't know, what exactly will this policy do?
So this policy will make prison phone calls specifically free for all folks who are incarcerated and their families. So providing access to communication services in the prisons.
And why now? Why implement this program during this time period?
Well, this has actually been a battle for many, many years here in the state. But there's many other states that have already done this. So New York is now the 6th state to finally make communication free in its prisons. But it's particularly important in this moment just because of what's happened in the last few months in the last year. With the correctional officer strikes, many of the facilities are still struggling to bring back programming at pre-strike levels and all of that. And so this communication really is offering a tremendous amount of relief in those environments, and importantly, allowing people to continue their rehabilitative processes while the sort of facilities kind of get back to their normal function.
And can you talk about the benefit? Why have this free program?
Absolutely. The benefit of having communication access is huge for the people who are incarcerated, for correctional officers who work in that environment, for families of those who are incarcerated, and for the public, right? For those who are incarcerated and their families, obviously this is a huge financial burden that has been lifted. We're talking about over $13 million a year that families are paying simply to make a phone call. When in the city of New York, we have a kiosk on every other block where any New Yorker can make a call for nothing. And so obviously we can do that in our facilities. And so this is a big financial relief for those families. It also allows people who are incarcerated to engage in their rehabilitative process. People who are connected to their communities are more likely to have hope, to participate in programs, to be able to plan for their release, for housing, for employment. That means when they come home, they are more likely to be successful in their reentry, not recidivate, and that makes us all safer. And finally, with that type of mentality in the prisons, access to communication has been shown to reduce incidents of disciplinary infractions, of violence, because it reduces tensions. And so that really creates an environment that is a better workplace for people who are correctional officers, as well as those who live in those facilities.
And this will be funded through the DOC's budget. There has been some criticism from some lawmakers saying, we don't want our taxpayer money to go towards this. What's your response to that?
Sure. The DOC's budget is immense. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar budget, right? And this program is incredibly cost-effective and cheap, really related to everything else that DOC's is doing. And so it's a drop in the bucket. Some have even described it as a rounding error when it comes to the actual DOC's budget, and the impact is massive. And importantly, when Connecticut did this, it has had such tremendous impact on that environment that I personally spoke with one of the deputy wardens of a facility who told me that he was grateful to taxpayers, to the government for actually subsidizing this program there because of how it changed the environment for correctional officers. So I think when we think about what the impacts are, there's no program that could be more effective in actually providing the type of outcomes that we see from basic communication.
And we're running out of time, but what message would you like New Yorkers to know about this?
I think the importance here is just how much this is going to benefit everyone, and it is a right, smart, and just policy. At the end of the day, it's humane. As I noted, every person in the city of New York, that's 8 million people, can make free calls. In 2025, communication, phone calls are not a pricey thing to provide. And so this is going to be a huge impact for our system, for public safety, and we're really grateful to all those who are involved in making it happen.
We'll have to leave it right there. Bianca Tylik, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
New York continuing to respond to overdose deaths. When we come back, we'll hear from a state lawmaker looking for more transparency when it comes to how the opioid settlement money is being spent.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us on news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, @WTEN.
Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. We are continuing to follow the state's response to opioid use.
This is at the national level. Drug overdose deaths are seeing a slight increase this year after a significant decline.
According to data from the CDC, drug overdoses seeing a slight increase, about 1,400 deaths over the last 12-month period. This after they reported deaths were actually down by 24% by September of last year compared to the previous year. Now, despite the changes, the CDC does acknowledge drug overdoses are still the leading cause of death for Americans 18 to 44.
As the death rates from overdoses fluctuate, New York and other states seek legal action against drug makers. Last month, multiple states agreed to a settlement with drug maker Purdue Pharma over manufacturing and marketing opioids. Additionally, 8 other drug manufacturers agreeing to pay around $38 million to New York for supplying opioids to the state. Those payments will begin next year.
Joining us now to give additional insight on the state of the opioid settlement fund in New York State, Assemblyman Phil Steck, Democrat representing the 110th district. Phil, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
So this seems like it'd be a completely easy, positive story. They'll get all this money coming in. Let's get it out. Who needs it? What's happening? What's wrong?
So the legislature agreed with the governor to have the money go through something called the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee with all the best intentions. That committee was supposed to be comprised, and is comprised, of people who are interested in the field, people with a lot of experience, and the idea is that then the money would be spent in accordance with their recommendations. However, it's supposed to be an advisory committee, and it has kind of become an obstacle to the legislature allocating money where it thinks is needed at an appropriate time. The governor takes the position nothing can be done unless it goes to the advisory committee. Then it goes to OASAS, the agency that operates treatment programs, and it gets slow moved out of there as they go through their process, and it doesn't get where it needs to go fast enough. We had experience where we allocated $1.2 million to specific programs that treat mental health and substance use disorder at the same time. They were shocked at how quickly they got the money because it was allocated in the budget. So that's the difference. That's why the money is being kind of slow moved out.
Now, Assemblyman, how much money are we talking about here? How much money did we get from the settlement lawsuit, and then also how much money has the state do they have left to distribute to people?
I think it was approximately about $500 million, and now we've got approximately 200 million or more.
Also, you mentioned, I was looking kind of at your website, naloxone, known as Narcan. What was the issue there? Because you think, oh, buy as much Narcan as you want because it's saving lives. But what was happening with this $20 million or so?
Well, the only issue that I've really been involved in on that is there are a lot of new drugs coming out. Narcan's a great thing, saved a lot of lives, but there are a lot of new drugs coming out, and what we've been involved in is making sure the state allows the new products to enter the marketplace, which it has not been doing because it contracts solely with a generic maker of Narcan. that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Competition in developing product is good for the field.
Now, will you have legislation to change that?
Yes, we do. It did pass the Assembly. It has not passed the Senate.
When we talk about the slow walking of some of these funds, I'm guessing it's not deliberate. Someone's not sitting there saying, well, I don't want to put this money out there. Is it just too many cooks in the kitchen? What do you
Well,
think?
it's probably a little bit of that, but honestly, I think from a budgetary perspective, the governor's office likes to use this money over a long period of time so it doesn't have to spend additional money in this field. So I do think it is, quite frankly, intentional.
So money's, I guess, fungible is might be the right word, where it kind of works anywhere. If this money's sort of sitting there, maybe the money that would have gone there goes somewhere else. That
Correct.
And where exactly would you like to see this money go?
Well, there are many, many programs in the state. I think we could be more robust in our funding of programs that treat people with co-occurring mental health and substance use disorder. That has been a great complaint of the public since I became chair of this committee. Parents have complained that their loved one died because they only got treatment from traditional drug treatment providers. They didn't get the mental health component, which they needed. That is an area that really needs to be more robust. I would have much preferred that a very large amount of money went into that space.
And I want to hit a little bit on the need there. You sort of touched on it. It always strikes me, Phil, that if we had a toaster oven that killed 5 people, it'd be national news. It'd be leading. David Muir would have it on the news every night. But you have opioids. It's still the leading cause of death, I believe, between,
Well, alcohol actually causes a remarkable amount of death.
As well.
Some would contend that it may even be more than opioids. Yeah. But it's been with us so long, and we're not suggesting because of that you make it illegal. We tried that, didn't work. But it is certainly, it is vexing that that is the case, but I think there's a general attitude among Americans that if you have this problem, you caused it yourself, and that's not a very constructive approach to the problem.
Is there also a little bit of, forgive me for using the word, like shame attached to it, where people don't talk about what happened to their son, what happened to a spouse if they OD, where it's like, oh, it was terrible, let's not talk about it. But if we talk about the opioid crisis more openly, more help might get, not slow walk, but get out there.
Yes, that's true. And another factor is we also have a bias in favor of criminal law enforcement. That did not work very well. I think the options of treatment are far more successful. We had been driving the rates down. To her credit, the commissioner of OASIS, Dr. Cunningham, is a big believer in what's called harm reduction, which is stopping people from dying through the use of Narcan and other approaches. That has been helpful. I think, on the other hand, there isn't as much optimism about treatment, and there are lots of people who have succeeded in treatment. I remember one of the earliest cases I ever had as a lawyer was I represented a successful businesswoman who, it turned out, had an intravenous drug use problem when she was younger, and obviously was successful in treatment and went on to have a great career. So I think we have to be more optimistic about approaching this problem from a treatment perspective.
Okay.
And lawmakers will return to Albany in January. Is there any legislation that you would like to see done next year?
In this field?
Yes.
So I'd rather talk about the stock transfer tax, but that's another issue.
No, we got to talk about that. What is the stock
So the
transfer
stock transfer tax New York had from 1905 to 1981. A modern version would be, it is a tax of 1/10 of 1%, or 10 cents per $100 share of stock. Because of the exploding stock market and the vast increase in the amount of trades, it could raise up to $60 billion rather painlessly for the state. The complaint is, Wall Street's going to leave, but it's not a tax on Wall Street. It's a tax paid by the investors. And I think it's a hard argument to make that a 10-cent tax per $100 is going to drive people to trade in other places. New York, when New York put this in 1905 to 1981, there was the similar complaints. There were many stock exchanges in the nation at that time. New York prospered and the other ones failed. So I just think it's a painless way to raise a lot of money, and we've put it in our bill. We put a lot in infrastructure, which our citizens all know has been in decline. There's all complaints about, well, we want to do all this green energy conversion, but we don't have the money to pay for it, or I don't want to pay for it myself. The bill puts money into that. It solves a lot of problems that the state has. I like to call the New York State budget a giant amalgamation of partially funded programs. Yeah. I think this ends that problem.
All right, Phil, we'll have to leave it there. Phil Steck, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Covered a lot of ground today.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, the tragic mass shooting in New York City now causing ripple effects on the ongoing mayoral race down there. When we come back, we'll hear from reporter Henry Rossoff on the public safety surrounding that shooting, how old social media posts could now actually be impacting the mayoral frontrunner.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X at WTEN.
Welcome back. New York City was rocked this week following a mass shooting. A gunman walking into a building in Manhattan, opening fire, killing 4 people, injuring another before taking his own life.
The shooting drawing reaction from the candidates in the city's mayoral race. Reporter Henry Rossoff brings us more.
What I will be as the mayor is someone who recognizes the work that these officers do.
Zohran Mamdani is defending his ability to lead the largest police force in the country as the city grieves the loss of one of its finest. He took question after question about his policing policies and old statements after a morning spent embracing the family of Officer Didarul Islam. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Eric Adams have pointed to past social media posts by Mamdani calling for the defunding of police, calling the NYPD racist, even deriding an officer for crying.
He just doesn't understand government, and he doesn't understand public safety. And he is dangerous in that regard.
And I want to ask those who want to demonize their activity to have a personal reflection of understanding the role that we believe public safety play in our city.
Both the mayor and the governor hit Mamdani specifically on his previous calls to disband the Strategic Response Group, or SRG, which was a group of officers who responded to the mass shooting Monday evening. Mamdani says that is exactly the type of work police should be doing, as opposed to the over-aggressive policing of protests, which the SRG has also been used for. Mamdani says he's grown since those old social media posts, but we pressed him on their impact.
Do you wish you hadn't said some of those things a few years back?
My statements in 2020 were ones made amidst a frustration that many New Yorkers held at the murder of George Floyd. The campaign that I am asking New Yorkers to consider is one that has been clear on its public safety approach. It's one that speaks about a desire to work with police officers.
A new proposal could change how and when New York redraws its congressional districts. Lawmakers are reacting as other states like Texas move to shift their maps before the next election. Redistricting usually happens once every 10 years, but a proposed constitutional amendment would let New York adjust its congressional lines early if other states make the first move. Supporters argue it's about fairness in national representation. However, the soonest it could go into effect, if passed, would be for the 2028 elections. Others are pushing back, calling it a political maneuver.
What I'm going to say is all's fair in love and war, because we are following the rules. We do redistricting every 10 years, but if there's other states that are violating the rules and are going to try and give themselves an advantage, all I'll say is I'm going to look at it closely with Hakeem Jeffries.
In a statement, Republican Assembly Leader Will Barkley said in part, quote, right on cue, New York's Democrats spring into action to protect their own self-interest and radical agenda. This bill is purely political and not worth the paper it's printed on. The amendment would need to pass 2 consecutive legislative sessions before going on to the ballot, making the earliest possible change in time for the 2028 elections.
Stick around. Back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X at WTEN.
Finally, in Empire State Weekly, $11.9 billion. That's the total amount of money collected in local sales tax here in New York State during the first 6 months of 2025. That's a 3% increase from last year. This new data, according to a report from the New York State Comptroller's Office.
Most local governments rely on sales tax and property tax to run governmental operations, so these increases are likely to have an impact, and we'll be sure to keep an eye on the economy in the state and bring the latest analysis.
For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray.
I'm Jamie DeLine. We'll see you here next week.
Don't you forget, you can watch this show all over New York State, wherever you are. Here's a full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.